Welcome to Amplifyre's interview series. My name is Kristian, and joining me today is the head of new business at Calvium, Chris Gordon. Chris, welcome to the series, my friend. How are you today?
I'm really good, thanks, Kristian.
It's good to have you on because today we are talking about web apps versus native apps. So maybe to start us off, Chris, what are the key differences between the two?
Sure, well, let's start with web apps. So a web app is something that's going to run on a web browser, and it's not going to require any installation or downloading from an app store. It can be accessed from any device that's got an internet connection, I guess. The front end is going to be built with tech like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, TypeScript, and the back end with things like Ruby, PHP, and Python. And it's had various iterations, so we've now got progressive web apps, and they've added extra dimensions, things like push notifications and stuff like that. And then there's native mobile apps, and the key difference there is they're going to be ones that are written in specific programming language to that particular platform. So for iPhones, it's going to be using Objective-C or Swift, and for Android phones or tablets, it's going to be using either Java or Kotlin, and those will be downloaded from an app store for Apple or for Google Play stores for Android.
So what are the drawbacks between web apps compared to native apps?
Sure. Well, again, let's start with web apps. So I think the key thing with web apps is they're going to be cheaper to develop and they're going to be quicker to develop. You're not going to have any approval from an app store. And for the end user, I guess there's no need to download an app. So there's less clutter on a phone because they are essentially websites. They can be discovered a bit more easily using kind of search engine optimization. And there's no need to update the app every time the operating system of the phone is uploaded. The downsides, I guess, with web apps is certain features will not work quite as well. Generally lower performance and user experience versus native apps. You do rely, the key thing is you're going to rely on an internet connection to function. So, I mean, they can work with some degree of offline capability, but generally speaking, it's online that they need to be there. And they also rely on certain browsers or certain versions of a browser to deliver certain features. They're getting better. But you're going to have to get them as a thing that looks like an app on your phone. You're going to have to go to a URL. You have to save that as an icon on the home screen, which is relatively easy on Android, a bit of a fiddle on Apple. They're getting better on security, but they don't have the same level of safeguards as, say, a native mobile app. And crucially, there are certain key functionalities that vary by platform. So some things will work on Android, but not on iOS, and vice versa, which is kind of frustrating if you're pushing things out to a wide number of people. Native mobile apps, superior user experience, smoother animations, faster performance compared to web apps. They can access the native device features, camera, GPS, etc. And you can work with them offline without any internet connection for certain things. You've got greater control over the look and the feel of the app compared to web apps. And also, although you have to go through the app store, having an app store has some benefits. It ensures quality standards, and it's a kind of shop window in itself, I guess. And there's more security. Downside, I guess, costs more. You're going to have to build 2 apps, one for each platform. You have to go through the gatekeeper of the app store. There is some reluctance, I guess, with consumers to download apps onto phones, and they're going to cost more to develop and take a little bit longer.
And so I think we should, for this next question, kind of hyper focus on one or the two. So let's just say that as a company, I decide I want to build a native mobile app for my product. How does this process start? How does it work?
Okie dokie. Well, I think the first thing you're going to have to accept is if you go native, then you are building for 2 separate platforms. So you are going to have to build 2 apps. I guess there would be an exception there if you were working for a specific company and their staff only had Android phones or perhaps Apple phones. But generally speaking, if you're pushing stuff out, especially to the wider public, you're going to have to build 2 apps. And then linked with that, you're going to have to publish those apps to the app stores. So you're going to have to go through an app approval process. And thirdly, you're going to have to accept that you're going to have to maintain that app over time, because Apple and Google are going to make a fundamental change to their operating system at least once a year on average. Now, we develop both web and native, but if we're going specifically looking at native, we made the decision about 5 or 6 years ago to start employing React Native as our platform framework of choice. There are other frameworks out there, Xamarin, Cordova, Flutter, but we've gone with React Native. And that helps us because what it allows us to do is to, yes, build two apps, but do a lot of the fundamental building work in one go, and then push it out to the two separate operating systems. And we kind of feel that React Native is a kind of serious coders framework. Something like Flutter, for example, is great for building in a more, let's say, predetermined way. It's got a big library of widgets. But if you need to go off-piste, that could be an issue. And it could be that your internal team might feel very comfortable with Flutter because it's quite an easy thing to use. But the problem is that Flutter has got an underlying coding language called Dart. And not many people use Dart. There's only about, I think, 6.5% from what I checked recently of coders that actually use it. So if you then need to do some more fundamental development and ongoing extensions, you might find that a bit tricky. Reusing React Native is great because it's going to basically speed up your development time by about 30%. So yes, you're still building two apps to the two different platforms, but you're going to increase the ability to get that out much quicker. It's really great for integration with the native solutions, and it's also got a high level of customization with third-party libraries and tools. So we use Expo, which extends React Native and helps interaction with things like phone cameras, logging in via Google and Facebook, and interaction with Google Maps, for example. I think the other good thing with React Native that we like for our clients is that there's a large community of developers out there. So if we did something, we built it using React Native, and then we didn't work with them going forward, they could always go to somebody else. And it's got a very good UI as well, which is very important to us in terms of creating consumer-facing apps.
You know, Chris, I'm sure there's so much more that goes into building a native mobile app, and I know you guys have the experience to do so. So if people want to find out more about Calvium, where can they go?
Yeah, if you want to find out a little bit more about Calvium, by all means go to our website, Kristian. So that's all the W's, calvium.com. I'll spell that for you, CALVIUM.com. And you can see the work that we've done in various different organisations, people like Rolls-Royce, UK government, etc. And we're also on social media, so you can find us on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for joining, Chris. Really interesting stuff. So go check out Calvium. Of course, the links are in the description.